friends, I thought with all the shopping happening that I would present a tutorial, yes, amongst the retail chaos, so we could have a little bit of a breather. We could take a break and use the items that maybe we purchased last year or yesterday, like myself. And this is to show the beloved, the coveted Victoria Beckham Beauty Satin Kajal liners. I am a recent VBB enthusiast, as I first made a purchase back in February. You could check out that video here. And of course, one of the standout recommendations was that I had to try her liners. And funny, Victoria Beckham Beauty first launched her liners in September of 2019. So I am 6 years late, but I'm happy to be here. And did you know how many shades released in that initial launch? 3. Want to guess what those were down below? Black, bronze, and Bordeaux. And funny, I recently finally just purchased Bordeaux from her V-Suite 25% off site-wide event. I had to grab it because it's been haunting me, and yes, I did grab other shades. You'll know when that package arrives. I purchased bronze back in February when I made my first haul, and I never bought the black shade because I rarely wear black liner on my waterline or as a wing liner, and I have cocoa, which I prefer. I just think is a softer look to the eyes, but maybe perhaps down the road I'll eventually buy the black one just because I want all of them eventually. But ever since the first 3 VBB release, we now have over 20 different shades and finishes. We have the matte, jewel, and shimmer finishes in Victoria Beckham Beauty Satin Kajal liners. I have a little bit of each. I think as of now I have mostly matte, maybe 3 shimmers and 2 jewel finishes. Of course, the recently acquired Coco Pave. Oh, that one's special. But you're probably asking, especially if you just happen to stumble upon this video, hi, I'm Alicia and I love VBB liners. What is the appeal behind this tremendous product? Well, it is a liner, obviously, but the creaminess, the glide, I mean, the silkiness. When I say creamy, I mean creamy, but able to become smudge proof and waterproof, because it's either one or the other, right? You have to make sure you work quickly, otherwise the budge proof liner will set immediately, won't be able to blend it, diffuse it, to shape it as you would like, and then you're stuck with some blunt looking liner on your lash and you're like, well, I need to start over again. Victoria Beckham Beauty liners allow the user ample time to manipulate, maneuver, and finesse these liners to however you want them to appear on your eyes. However, you could also use them as shadow. And I wasn't the only one who realized this hack. An article published in People's Magazine back in November 2022 by Alyssa Grabinski outlined just that. The liner is so phenomenal apparently that one is sold every 30 seconds. I believe it. And if you're asking, well, how much are these liners, Alicia? Well, they retail for $34 each and they are made in Germany. So if you're able to score a discount, a sale of some sort that's actually happening now, 25% off site-wide. No, this is not a sponsored video. I participated myself in the recent sale as I am a V-Suite member and was able to shop the site early before it was open to public. But if this video convinces you to actually try these liners, making a case for them, because if you heard things, if you heard that they're tough to deal with, they're not your typically developed liner. Sure, this is to show you perhaps if you are having trouble with the VBB liners, if you purchase them and they are collecting dust in your drawer because you just couldn't figure out a way for them to work for you. Now, maybe they just won't work for you. Maybe you've tried them in a variety of ways with a number of different tools and they don't stay, they wear, you don't like the colors, maybe you had an allergic reaction. All of those are possibilities. But if you didn't have a reaction and it kind of worked out for you, but you just need the bridge, maybe a tip here and there, some recommendations. So this is to break down the various ways I like to use the VBB Satin Kajal liners, be it lining the waterline, smudging the wing, or just wearing them as eyeshadow. And yes, my eyes are bare as I am saving them for an on-camera demo, but I have a few B-roll demos to share. In order to provide options, I might not know how you like to wear liner, so I tried to come up with the variety of ways that I think one can use these liners for, but definitely want to show how you can use these suckers to create an entire eye look just with liners. So much so that it would appear as if you use actual eyeshadow. I know, crazy. So if you're like me who have several and you need more ideas to use them with, or maybe you just purchased a liner and you can't quite figure out how to get the most out of it, well, hopefully this video will help you fill those gaps. Let's begin with how someone could typically use a VBB liner for, and that is to line the waterline. That is the inner skin of your eye, and it's not mandatory that you do this. I think the appeal behind it, especially if you use a dark color like I do here with Cocoa, is that it gives you that sultry look. It defines the eyes, it smokes it out, and has that contrast look, especially if you are a minimalist and you enjoy that all-around liner look that I gently smudged out with my Refer Shoto 06 brush. It is a Tuckahoe goat hair undyed brush, but the way the bristles are bundled, that stippled effect allows the pencil to mostly stay on the skin and have that diffused effect. Now with VBB liners, as you probably saw on the demonstration, how smooth they are on the application. There is no pulling, there is no tugging. I mean, they are slippery. So much so that I would exercise a little bit of control with the hand. Otherwise, I feel the pencil will just kind of slip and you'll get liner where you don't want liner to be on. But if you have sensitive eyes and you don't want to experience any of that tugging, you're not going to feel it with these liners. You could leave the liner as is, as you saw on the waterline, or you can diffuse just under the lashes and over the lashes, as I did with the top lash, to give it a more hazy effect with that waterline look. And I wanted to experiment with the color bronze. Now bronze will not have the same amount of depth that Cocoa presents, and you saw that Cocoa is a matte finish. Bronze here is a shimmer. It's a great way to achieve maybe an intermediate amount of haze where you have a little bit of smoke under and over your lash line and you have that shimmer effect, which I think is lovely just as a more minimalist approach to your eye makeup. You don't necessarily have to apply something on your lid. You can just use the shimmer or even the jewel finish liners to line your waterline top and bottom, smudge it out a bit, and there you have it. You have a more defined eye, but with a little bit of pizzazz, especially depending on which liner you use. Now moving on to the winged liner. This is where maybe Pat McGrath Labs Permagel liner or even a Prada liner would excel over VBB, because you have a lot of blending time with this texture. You might have already realized, especially if you own one or a few of these like myself, that they don't set quickly. You have ample blending time to move and groove the product, which I think funny, the little end or opposite end of the pencil that you saw on the close-up, I think is too hard and too hard of a sponge tip to work with a soft product like the VBB liner. I feel the sponge tip just takes product off and doesn't leave anything behind, why I insist on using a softer brush. And in this demonstration, I would recommend that you draft the liner first, move on to the second eye, and then blend after you've applied liners on both sides, because if you try to blend it out too quickly, you might end up lifting product from the eye and will have to reapply where you have ample coverage, still want to blend out the liner. Wait a little bit, a little longer than what you might think, so there's actually some grip with the liner on your skin where you go in with the brush and you can successfully shape the liner as you please, but still the liner remain on your lash line, if that makes any sense. And you could clean up under the liner with concealer. I like my wing liners to be on the chunkier side. That's why I went a little willy-nilly on the application, like thickety thick. I did the same thing with jeans. Is it jeans? I keep wanting to say denim. Yes, it's jeans. Jeans was a shade that I waited until it restocked. Happy that I was able to purchase it a few months ago. But I like the wing shape effect on the lash line. I think it's fun, especially if you use a different color, as you saw that I demonstrated with jeans. Can't wait to see it in Bordeaux, or even cinnamon, like the more neutral shades in the lineup. And again, just wait for the liner to set a little bit before you go in to manipulate the shape. I think you'll be happier with the outcome in not picking up product so it doesn't look sheer on the lid, but you'll actually have color left behind. And you saw that I used another Refer Shoto brush, designed similarly, essentially the same as the 06, but because that's a flat shadow liner design, this is more of a smaller tapered design, but the stippled bristles allow the product to stay on the lash line, but still move it in a soft, diffused fashion, so it can have those softened edges without it just blending away entirely. So those are the more straightforward liner techniques, but I want to show you how I recently been using these liners and how you can as well and get the most out of your Satin Kajal liners. So if that sounds like a plan, it's time for you to come in a little closer. Now, these liners are developed to be smudge proof and waterproof. That's what it says on the product page. But if you want a little more security, you could go in with an eye primer, one that doesn't have any coloring or one that does. But no, if you apply something that is supposed to grab shadow that has grip, you might lose the silky blendability of the liner, right? Because when applied directly on the skin, it is slip. So just know you might lose a little bit of that if you decide to apply an eye primer first. I'm going straight on my lids just to demonstrate again the beautiful creamy texture of these liners, and wanted to begin with Terracotta. Terracotta recently released over the summertime. Is one of the newer shades for the lineup, and my goodness, I need to sharpen this pencil. Also remember, if you're ordering these from the VBB site, you can choose to order with or without a sharpener. I just say that because if you don't do that, you end up, especially if you purchase more than one liner, with like 5 sharpeners. Fine if you like to put them all over the place and just have them there if you're working with different makeup bags, but if you don't want all those sharpeners, choose the no sharpener option. As a tip. In a similar fashion as I had demonstrated applying or prepping for a winged liner look, I take the liner along the lash line, but see how I am haphazardly applying it, not taking great care as to how I want the finished product to look. The second best tool you have at your disposal are your fingers, and you can gently tap, not necessarily near on the lash line, just on the edges of the liner, so you can produce this hazy look that emerges from the lash line, almost as if, yes, you applied shadow, and it naturally creates this beautiful gradient effect from lash line through the crease. And that also can serve as a great backdrop or even a priming layer for maybe a drier shimmer texture that you wanted to apply, or maybe something duochromy right within the similar realm of this terracotta shade. I love to follow up with the same liner under the lash line here. Now, I could use my pinky, but I am following up with a Maria Catala brush. This is in, there's no number. Yes, it is. Here's the number 8. This is a synthetic brush, but it's a small dome shaped blender. That's great because since it's synthetic, it's durable with liquid and cream products for the eyes. It's soft, so it won't pull on the skin, and it helps to move the pencil in a way that creates that diffused finish. Isn't that pretty? I love this. Terracotta is one of my most favorite releases from the liners. When I saw it, I was like, it had to be mine. Now, what can you do in enhancing the look? You could keep it right here. Maybe you don't apply mascara, maybe you do. Maybe you apply some lashes. However, I like to introduce another shade. And if I think there might, yes, there is for sure. Looking on the product page, like for instance, Gold Lame, you can apply here on the inner corner for a highlight effect, or even Linen is a true matte white. That's going to have more of like that pastel color blocking effect for the inner corner liner. It's funny, looking at all the shades, she does not have like a champagne pencil, but that makes sense since you might want to look into her actual shadow sticks that have the lighter champagne-y shades that you could use as eyeliner, or excuse me, inner corner highlight. But I could experiment with, what do I have here? Bronze. I think bronze could be pretty on the inner corner. It's not going to have that same, that's my phone, inner corner highlight effect, but I think it will have a shimmer effect. So you see there is a little bit of reflectivity, and grabbing actually the same blender brush, make sure if you're using the same brush to wipe between applications so there's no cross color contamination. I am blending them together, but not that terracotta ends up on the inner corner is what I'm saying. You could whip it over the edge so you create a nice gradient effect. Now, if you wanted a little more definition along the lash line, which is nice because you can create more of like a smoky diffused effect. So we're taking Cocoa, and I'm actually starting not inner part of the eye, but a quarter out and drafting upwards, as I do want some coloring here on the outer lid. Taking that same blender and softly now pulling it up towards the outer V, and I'm applying light pressure. You don't want to apply so much pressure that you lift product off the lid. Just enough where you maneuver it to where you want it to settle. And you could also bring a little bit here in towards the corner. Not so much, but just enough where it doesn't appear as it's stopping abruptly. But see how that immediately smoked it out. Now, I'm sure you're saying, well, Alicia, look at that messy blend. No problem. Just grab a slightly larger brush without any product and whip those edges to shape. You don't have to apply powder. You could just maneuver the pencil and just lightly soften the edges there. See what I'm saying? And it's as if I applied shadow, but because it's a cream, it just has a more forgiving lay down on lid texture, in my opinion, where powders can be too, they could enhance texture, whereas the VBB liners, they just work with your skin and appear more natural in finish. And this is what I did one day, and I said, I need to share this with my friends. I think it's a lot of fun. You probably have already done this and you're like, Alicia, we've been waiting for you, but thank you for coming. Let's try a fun shade, and I want to demonstrate with jeans. I actually featured jeans on a short where I wore this with VCR Serenus. That was a lot of fun. Demonstrated how you can wear jeans solo, as I will show here, and applying it in the same fashion as I did Terracotta. Now you notice I applied Terracotta everywhere else except the waterline. I'm not like a waterline person. I rarely do that, but just so you can see, I admit it does complete the look. If you want to commit to this color and have it everywhere, then sure, go in on the waterline. As well as if you use jeans, I will a little bit here on the waterline. I have some leftover bronze actually from my waterline demo, but it's fine. And gently running that in the lashes too. I don't want any space uncovered. And don't you worry, you see how messy and just sketchy this looks? Totally fine, because again, we'll take our small blender and start to diffuse the edges where it will appear a little smoother. And because this is on the longer side, it has a lot of movement, right? If you want something more precise and that will keep the color tighter to your lash line, then I would use something like, let's see here, this is her number 6 brush. This is a more traditionally shaped shader. And because it doesn't have the same movement as that mini blender, you will have a little more control over that placement. But isn't that pretty? I love jeans, and especially to here, you can kind of whip it up, and this is where maybe go in, or you could actually run the brush on the actual pencil, because if you feel you don't need more or want to control the placement, you can take it off the pencil directly and maybe tap to increase the color intensity, and then softly whip in. I like to go in just so I can control the angle and the finish of that application. And you always have your finger to kind of like just dab away any mistakes. And again, if you want to fully commit, get into that waterline top and bottom and just encircle the entire eye. And then following up with my shader a little bit here on the inner corner. And there you have it. You don't have to apply anything on your lid. You can. You could go in with maybe like a light shimmer powder, something that has a beautiful sparkle effect, or you could keep it as we did on the first eye. And you could also layer them. So going in with Coco Pave, because Coco Pave has blue sparkles in there. And I think a fantastic combination when paired with jeans, because you can see that blue sparkle just emerging from your lash line, and then the blue sparkles match beautifully well with the blue in jeans. And I'm just tapping here so I can keep that sparkle on the lash line. And I would like actually to introduce a little more of that jean color. So just tapping lightly on the border half of the lid and taking my blender here to invite a little more color, right? So it really all depends on how diffused you want your liner to appear. If you want it to appear more of like a softened liner application, or you want it to appear like you applied actual shadow. And following up with Coco Pave again, because I want to keep a lot of that blue sparkle here on the lash line. And notice how I am applying liner on liner. It doesn't move, it doesn't look splotchy or uneven. You have full control over how you wear your liners and how you layer them. I think it's fantastic. You can also take Coco Pave if you want that sparkle to appear from your waterline on the lower lash line. Why not? And just take that brush, run it softly through. Isn't that pretty? I love it. I know I got 2 different knives on, but this is just to maximize our time so you can get an idea of how to use your different shades, your different finishes. And now that we've completed both looks, let me slap on some lashes and I'll be right back. And here are the close-ups from our demonstration, but I thought it would be fun to add smoky quartz to our terracotta eye, because as you saw, I can keep it matte and have that beautiful haze effect on the lid, or I can introduce a jewel finish liner to my lid and have a little bit of sparkle there. And saw how the terracotta liner didn't lift because it's set, and I was able to use my finger successfully in blending out the smoky quartz liner. Happy with how that turned out, and we'll get back in regards to how long this lasts, because again, the product claims are that they're smudge proof and waterproof, and I didn't apply my current favorite primer from Linda Hallberg Till the End Eye Primer. I think is fantastic in just boosting longevity for eye products on the lids. And we'll also keep you updated on Waterline performance. I read that it does great on the waterline for some, not so great on others. I would say if you're having issues with waterline longevity performance from the VBB liners, that you might stick to Pat McGrath Labs Permagel liner or even the Prada liners. Those, they don't have the same silky glide as the VBB liners, but I do recognize how they are beautifully long lasting. They're a little bit drier and tighter. So if you prefer just to use an entirely different liner for your waterline and perhaps use the VBB liners to create more shadow effects on your lids, then you can do that as well. I mean, this is kind of the point of the video, just using all the makeup that we have. And that could mean you cocktailing different liners even on the same eye to create the effect and the performance that you're looking to achieve. So I hope this video helped in providing a better understanding of Victoria Beckham Beauty's Satin Kajal liners. Maybe you don't have one, you've been eyeing them and you just couldn't decide because, again, unsure if they will be right for you, or maybe you don't know how to use liner at all and you think that it wouldn't fit into your makeup routine, or maybe you use these liners for shadow effects and you thought you couldn't do that because it's a liner, but you discovered that the texture is actually soft and you can use your fingers to blend, you can use different brushes to blend out the liner, you can layer them as you saw and use 3 liners at once. I love how the jeans eye came out, especially when you combine it with Coco Pave, because again, the blue sparkle just pairs beautifully with jeans. And this ain't bad. I have 2 different eyes, but I think it looks great. Just to present as many examples as possible, but hopefully this video helped. I am a fan of these liners. I think they are fantastic. You definitely have to use them in a way that highlights their greatness, and I think that lives in their ability to be worn as shadow, to be blended out, to be layered, to provide that beautiful gradient on the lids without looking dry or textured. Once you have a handle on these liners and you know how to use them and you know what tools to use them with, oh my goodness, get ready. And I will be back on here once I receive my package because I ordered like 4 more. I think it was Bordeaux, Fig, Olive, and 1 other. I can't recall. Maybe just 3? No, I think it was 4. I cannot wait to share those colors with you and to combine them with the liners that I have. And with that said, if you made it this far, make sure you like this video by clicking that thumbs up. It helps me immensely in letting the YouTube algorithm know that I'm fun to watch and will now recommend my video to other Victoria Beckham Beauty and Satin Kajal liners enthusiasts like yourself. And consider subscribing because I'll be back on here with more liners. Any other makeup reviews or tutorials are on the queue and you'll know when those uploads drop, especially when you click that notification bell. Friend, if you're returning and watching, thank you so much for doing so. I appreciate the time, but if it's your first time here, please stay, peruse some more. Maybe I'll see you in this video here. I'll definitely see you down in the comments for this one, and on here again next time.